Lighting in ZBrush is designed to be fast and flexible, so that you can test out your ideas instantly and make changes in real time. The Light Cap interface gives you the power to develop and edit complex lighting quickly and see the results on your model instantly, whether you're in preview mode or when you're rendering using BPR or best quality rendering. In this video, we'll take a look at the Light Cap interface and the ways you can use it to develop sophisticated lighting quickly and intuitively. So here's a model that I've rendered using BPR. You can see it's casting shadows. When I start to rotate the model, I switch back to preview mode. And you can see as I rotate the model, the reflections on the surface, the lighting coming from various different directions, and all these lights have been created using Light Cap. So let's take a look at how Light Cap works. I'm switching to a basic material, and I'm going to put the lighting palette in the tray so that we can easily access its tools. And then I'm going to turn off the default light in the scene so that the only lighting that we see is coming from Light Cap. Now I'm going to press the New Light button, and this is going to create a new light in Light Cap. As I drag the red dot around in the Light Cap interface, you can see how I'm changing the position of the light, and you can see it also update on the model in real time. By increasing the aperture slider, I can create the look of diffuse lighting, just general lighting that goes over the entire model. Now as I increase the strength, you can see that the light is a bit brighter. It looks kind of like an ambient occlusion style rendering. I'm going to use this light to create kind of a fill lighting for my model, and then I'm going to add additional lights on top of it so that we can get sort of the sense of a multi-light scenario. So every time I press the New Light button, it adds another light to the Light Cap interface, and each light can be positioned by dragging the red dot that appears on top of the preview sphere in Light Cap. Of course, I can adjust the fall off and the aperture and the strength of each light individually, and you can create some interesting effects. So I have an aperture of about 60 on this light, and I've lowered the fall off, and this creates kind of a hard edge to the light, which results in something that looks kind of graphic or hand-drawn. It's kind of a very cool effect. So I'm continuing to experiment by changing the color of the lights, adding additional lights, and changing their position to see if I can create some kind of interesting sort of environmental light. Maybe sort of a green or a bluish kind of bounce light that's coming from the environment. So I've added another light and positioned it so that it's shining from the upper left. And now I'm clicking on the alpha button and adding an alpha texture to the light to give it a little bit more visual interest. You can use your own imported alphas or anything that's available in the alpha palette. In this case, I'm just using a simple square. And when I increase the horizontal and vertical tiling sliders in the Light Cap interface, I can create something that looks like maybe a reflected window or some bounce cards or something like that, some kind of studio lighting kind of environment. And you can see it reflected in the surface of the model. If I switch to the specular mode in Light Cap, I can see how the lights are being reflected on the surface. If I switch back to diffuse and lower the opacity for the selected light with the alpha, then this light will only appear in specular reflections and it won't affect the diffuse quality of the light. So I'm just increasing the aperture and the strength now so it's a little bit brighter. Now you can see that the light is just reflected on the surface, but it's not doing anything to the diffuse quality of the light. And I'll just reposition it here so it looks like it's being reflected from the upper left. I've continued to add lights to the Light Cap interface, and I'm using the light index slider to go through each different light and adjust their settings. You can adjust the shadow strength of each light individually. So I'm deciding which lights I want to have cast shadows and which lights I don't want to have any shadows at all. And now I'll create a quick BPR render just to see how the shadows are looking so far, and I can continue to tweak and refine to get something that looks very realistic. Because working with Light Cap is so easy, you can integrate it into your creative process while you develop the look for your model. So I'm testing different materials here with my Light Cap scenario and see how the lights react with different surfaces. There are a couple features of Light Cap that you can use to create a more integrated environment for your lighting setup. For instance, when I press the Create Environment button, it actually creates a background environment based on the lighting setup that I've created in Light Cap. So now you can see I have something that looks truly integrated into the environment. The term Light Cap refers to the way that lighting information can be captured from an image. I've gone into the texture folder of Lightbox and selected an image from the panoramas. In the light panel, I've selected this image for my background. Now I can rotate the image and zoom and find a good spot for my scene. When I turn on the reflect option and then press the light caps button, ZBrush creates a lighting setup based on the image, so now my model matches the background. When I switch to specular mode of light cap, you can see how the image is actually reflected on the surface. And if I rotate the panorama, after a few seconds, the reflections on the surface will actually update. And now I'll do a BPR render to see how it looks. And here's the result of the render, and you can see the shadows on the ground match the lighting. The surface looks like it's integrated into the scene. But now, of course, we can continue to use light cap to further develop the lighting in the scene and make it look even better. So I'm zooming in and I'm adding a couple lights in light cap and adjusting their settings, giving them a slightly blue color to sort of match the sky. And I've done another BPR here, and you can see how the image is starting to come together. I can use the save button in the light cap menu to save my light cap so that I can use it for future sessions if I want to use the same kind of lighting on different models. So let's say I like this lighting setup, but I don't want to show the background. I can just turn the on button off in the background subpalette of light palette, and then just rotate my model till I get a nice view. I still have the same lights and the same reflections, so when I press the Create Environment button, it creates a background that matches the lighting that was sampled from the original image. So now I'm going to turn on ambient occlusion in the render options and do another BPR render. And here's the rendered image, but of course I'm not done yet because I can open up the BPR filters in the render palette, and even after the rendering, continue to adjust the look of my model until I have something that looks really spectacular. So here's an example of a completed render straight from ZBrush that shows the model integrated completely into the environment. Reflections, shadows, lighting is all accurate, and it's all completely created in ZBrush. So you can see how powerful this is. You can create an image that is portfolio ready or perfectly suitable for a presentation in ZBrush very, very quickly while you're developing your ideas.